You are being led like sheep by this flock mentality of attacking the remake. But have you watched the movie? Weird, because I did.
First and foremost, I got a 2.3 out of 10 rating on IMDb, which is the lowest ever for a Disney princess movie. Press reviews that are rolling in are just brutal. And people are going as far as thinking that the movie is going to get pulled early from theaters because they're not selling any tickets. And the world is really pointing fingers at Rachel Zegler for all of this.
Have you ever watched a billion-dollar fairy tale vanish in real time? 1 week, Disney is everywhere, plastering a ruby-lipped princess on bus shelters from Anaheim to Abu Dhabi, rolling glitter dust trailers before every blockbuster, promising that her story will reinvent happily ever after for a new generation. And the next, that same princess fades like a broken broadcast signal.
Not to add fuel to the Rachel Zegler Oscar fiasco, but why did they have these women, all Disney princesses, all stated as Disney princesses, come out to present, but like not include Rachel Zegler, who's going to be Snow White? They're clearly acknowledging Disney princesses from movies that have not been released yet. Someone must have had this conversation and then they purposely left her out, even though she was the only one with a hit movie this year of the four. Did anyone else notice this, or am I overthinking?
Her movie's banner disappears from Disney+. Promotional tweets stop mid-sentence, and even her actor page suddenly redirects to digital nowhere. There is no furious public firing, no teary apology tour, just a thick corporate hush. That is the strange magic trick unfolding around Rachel Zegler's live-action Snow White. And the secret isn't tucked inside a poisoned apple. It lives in the way a risk-averse studio buries its own misfires while the rest of us are still arguing over box office spreadsheets. When Snow White opened on the 21st of March, industry trackers predicted Dumbo-level numbers. Painful, but survivable. Instead, the film stumbled to roughly $43 million domestic and a near-identical haul overseas against a rumored $250 million budget. Reviewers called it exhaustingly smug.
This is just pathetic. Look at this right here. Snow White scraps up a measly $12 million in opening day box office. Could have a worse weekend than The Marvels and Dumbo. Now, if you guys didn't know, The Marvels and Dumbo is the bottom of the pile when it comes to box office for Disney. Those movies lost Disney hundreds of millions of dollars, and it looks like Rachel Zegler's Snow White movie is headed in that direction. And look at this right here. Even mainstream media is calling out this movie for being garbage. Look at this right here. Woke flop Snow White could see one of Disney's sleepiest opening weekends. Listen, this movie made like $2 million on Thursday, right? Which is the previews day. Usually this is where when people come out and they go see your movie, you're supposed to have a higher number than 2 million. But bro, this movie is not going to make more than $46 million opening weekend, which is a disaster for Disney.
Audiences showered aggregator sites with 1-star ratings, and within 48 hours, the picture held the lowest IMDb score ever logged for a Disney princess adaptation. Trade analysts compared the flop to The Marvels and wondered aloud whether Disney's nostalgia engine had finally seized up after years of overuse. Numbers, though, were only half the disaster. The other half wore a scarlet cape and an uneasy grin. Rachel Zegler, once the Spielberg-anointed ingenue of West Side Story, became a lightning rod the moment stale press junket clips resurfaced. In one, she jokes that the 1937 prince is literally a stalker. In another, she waves off true love as hopelessly outdated. In a third, she admits she hated the original cartoon as a kid. Fans stitched those seconds into neon-captioned TikToks, X-threads, and YouTube reactions that racked up millions of views.
I know that you've told me before that your version of Snow White is different, and it's more of a 2022 version of Snow White. What did you mean by that?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story. With a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
#woke Snow White trended for days. Boycott petitions ballooned, culture war pundits declared Disney morally bankrupt, and every new trailer arrived pre-drenched in outrage. Opening weekend proved the storm wasn't just digital. Families chose safer releases, leaving IMAX auditoriums dotted with empty seats. Limited edition dolls stacked up unsold in Disney stores.
It sounds like you're one of the only ones there, just like Rachel Zegler, as it turns out, and we part with this video of Rachel Zegler alone in a theater watching herself. One of the most unlikable humans
That
ever.
is sadder than when the original Snow White eats the apple.
By Sunday night, the narrative hardened. This wasn't brave reinvention. It was a self-inflicted wound. Yet the sharpest blow landed Monday morning, when Disney's official channels went eerily silent. The studio skipped its usual thank you montage and #1 movie in the world boast. Instead, eagle-eyed Redditors noticed the Snow White coming soon tile vanish from Disney Plus in several regions. Hours later, Zegler's actor hub page, usually a cheerful resume of roles, redirected to blank space. Hushed erasure, not noisy spin, had become the order of the day. Silence is gasoline on the internet, and rumor factories ignited. Was Disney yanking the film early to stem losses? Were lawyers planning stealth reshoots with a lookalike? Had the algorithm been scrubbed of every mention of the most radioactive princess since live-action Mulan? Nothing was confirmed, yet the optics were obvious. When a mega studio abruptly stops promoting its own crown jewel and hides the leading actor's name, that's corporate triage in action. The company has rehearsed this maneuver. In 2021, Gina Carano's social media firestorm threatened The Mandalorian, and Lucasfilm didn't hold a town square debate. It simply vanished toys, key art, and press mentions overnight.
The Rachel Zegler effect has begun. According to scooper Daniel RPK, Rachel Zegler has been recast in Paddington 3 due to strikes, but I have a sneaking suspicion the strikes are only a cop-out for the fact that she has had so much negative press. She is certainly one of the key reasons why the Snow White movie is absolutely doomed. She's probably one of the key reasons why the next Hunger Games movie is gonna totally flop. And now the folks that are making the third Paddington movie are probably just using the strikes as an excuse to make sure that she's recast. Because I think if they outwardly said, well, we recast her because she just ruins everything she touches, that might not be a good look from the studio. But my speculation is that is actually what's going on here.
Decades earlier, Disney trimmed awkward segments from re-releases, buried controversial titles deep inside the fabled vault, and quietly rewrote park attractions to stay ahead of cultural shifts. The real superpower isn't animation, it is erasure by silence. So seamless that casual viewers scarcely notice. Contagion spread fast. In London, Paddington 3 issued a polite casting note. Rachel Zegler's cameo had been recast because of strike-related scheduling issues. Translation for industry watchers: no one wanted Snow White's baggage, tagging along with their marmalade-loving bear. Across the Thames, a glossy West End revival of Evetta, once hyped as Zegler's triumphant stage debut, sprang leaks like a cracked water main.
You know, this thing has to be really, really bad. I mean, the critics were looking for any way, any excuse to give it a high score. They know that conservatives don't like Rachel Zegler. Like, even they couldn't find a way to pretend that this piece of trash is anything but a piece of trash. And just to show you how trashy this is, here's a clip of Rachel Zegler performing a song from the film, apparently.
They say all you have to do true is let it echo. Your voice will carry.
Most generic, reheated pop music slop imaginable. Never mind that the lyrics make no sense at all. So a truly bad song with some bad life advice on top of it.
Theater forums buzzed with stories of walkouts, creative clashes, and a director's memo describing the star as volatile. Ticket sellers began offering discreet refunds, and gossip pages now linked Zegler's name as much to backstage chaos as to box office collapse. Inside Burbank, emergency planners tore pages from the crisis manual. Insiders whispered that Snow White would hit Disney Plus on 11 June, just 82 days after its theatrical bow, a week shorter than Disney's current fast-track window. Rushing a bomb to streaming isn't mercy, it's damage control. A quiet digital drop buries scathing reviews under fresh thumbnails, harvests a brief spike of doom scroll curiosity, then sinks beneath the recommendation algorithm's surface like a stone. Another rumor claimed executives had assembled alternate edits that minimized Zegler's screen time, shooting safety inserts last year, in case backlash ballooned. The gossip sounds extreme until you remember Disney once replaced guns with walkie-talkies in E.T. and lengthened Daryl Hannah's hair in Splash for a family-friendly cut. Nothing is impossible when optics threaten merchandise sales. Zegler's own feeds offered no counter-story because they slipped into near silence.
I had no idea what I was auditioning for when I auditioned. So it's a kind of a hilarious question to say, like, what drew you to the material? Is that, like, I didn't realize that I was reading lines with Dopey. It said, like, Jeff and Amy were reading lines. And then our director, Mark Webb, on Zoom was like, you know, and then Dopey's gonna look at you and whistle. And I took a pause and realized what I was auditioning for. And then it became like, I will elbow everyone out of the way to play the part.
No heartfelt apology, no pointed rebuttal, not even a playful repost of fan art. Trade magazines floated two possibilities. Either she is plotting a strategic rebrand with fresh representation, or she is spiraling as studio offers evaporate. All the casual viewer sees is a vanishing act. And here lies the cold truth. In Hollywood, box office failure can be survived, and controversy can be monetized. But when your personal brand threatens another brand worth tens of billions, the punishment isn't spectacle, it's quiet deletion. Audience appetite, meanwhile, is just as mercurial. For years, fans begged Disney to modernize fairy tales, diversify casts, and hand their heroines more agency. Then a single soundbite felt too smug, a single rewrite sounded too preachy, and the same crowd snapped the other direction. That whiplash exposes the fragile nostalgia Disney trades on. People adore reinvention until it touches the part of childhood they secretly want kept in amber. The studio learned the lesson in public, and Zegler took the full blast.
We covered woke Snow White, no longer white, snow taupe, snow beige, snow swarthy, snow's not swarthy. Some kind of sediment or sand that is no longer blanc. This young woman just explained the far more egregious changes to the story than the casting of this out-of-place actress.
You said you were bringing a modern edge to it on stage. What do you mean by that?
I just mean that it's no longer 1937, and we absolutely wrote a Snow White that is
not going to be saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love. She's dreaming about becoming the leader she knows she can be.
This is the central feature of the movie, is that it's a movie about love, and that she is reawoken by love. They're taking the love out of it. No, it's not about Prince Charming and love anymore. It's about what a girl boss she is, because that's what little girls dream of. They dream of being a girl boss.
So what happens next? The simplest path is digital oblivion. Snow White lands on streaming with zero fanfare, collects a week of hate-watch clicks, then lingers unviewed in the catalog while Disney pivots to safer intellectual property. Zegler signs on to tiny indie projects, rebuilds her reputation far from blockbuster glare, and returns in a glossy profile titled, "What I Learned from Disney's Biggest Flop." There is a darker possibility. The studio decides her name is uninsurable, and she spends years in a career ice age, waiting for public memory to fade. Yet Hollywood still loves a comeback. Maybe Rachel Zegler steps onto a late-night stage, owns every misstep, apologizes for tone-deaf quotes, and reintroduces herself to an audience eager to forgive. Robert Downey Jr. transformed prison records into a Marvel crown. Drew Barrymore spun child star chaos into decades of charm. Phoenix stories happen, but only when gatekeepers believe the fire is truly out, and right now those gates remain bolted. Disney historians like to joke that the company's real mascot isn't a mouse, but a memory hole. In 1970, executives snipped an entire sequence from a re-release of Fantasia to erase an offensive centaur, decades before social media could amplify outrage. In the 90s, the studio pushed Song of the South so deep into the vault that younger viewers debate whether it ever existed. When an artifact threatens the brand's carefully curated innocence, the company's first instinct is not public dialogue, it is quiet removal. Rachel Zegler's disappearing profile fits a pattern older than Disneyland itself. Whatever unfolds, the silent eraser has already proved more chilling than any Wicked Queen. It shows how fragile cinematic immortality is in the streaming age. A studio no longer needs to burn film reels, it simply deletes a thumbnail and tweaks a metadata field, and millions forget a movie ever existed. That should rattle anyone who cares about pop culture history, or who dreams that landing a breakout role guarantees a permanent place on screen. So the next time Disney unveils a gleaming teaser, remember how quickly those images can fade. Picture the bus shelters that once showcased a bright-eyed princess, now layered over by the next ad campaign. And never forget that the real villain of this saga isn't a jealous queen or a magic mirror. It is the quiet, calculated silence that falls when a corporation decides nostalgia is worth more than the people hired to bring it to life. Because in the kingdom of branded content, happily ever after lasts only as long as the metrics look magical, and the moment they don't, the fairy tale ends with nothing louder than a missing tile.